So moving on, it's impossible to summarize a single year in a matter of a few short minutes when it comes to the world's largest social network, Facebook. Its user growth off the charts bonkers. It's involving itself in nearly every aspect of the modern internet that it can. So I mean, I don't even know where you begin here. Let's start easy, because there are challenging topics. Let's start easy with Facebook Live and live video, which saw the company get into live video whole hog, making it instantly more difficult to dedicated services like Periscope, and rest in peace, Meerkat. In hindsight, is this merely a fad, or is Facebook in better shape because of its integration of this, Kurt?
I don't know if Facebook is in better shape or worse shape. I think maybe the positive of this whole thing, if you'll recall, they're actually paying media companies, including the one I work for, Vox Media. They're paying folks to use their product, right? So I think maybe a positive of this is, at the very least, everybody in the world of media has probably used Facebook Live at some point over the last year. They've seen how it works. Perhaps if they've done it enough, they've gotten some benefits out of it or understand what the benefits might be. I think the downside of all this is I'm still not totally convinced that live video on a Facebook or Twitter is even great, is even a good thing to do. I mean, most of the live videos I see, I don't actually watch live. I watch them later on. And then I wonder, well, why not just take a little bit more time and put together a nice polished, edited video? Rarely does live actually come into play for me unless there's like a guy scaling Trump Tower with suction cups, which of course everyone had to drop what they were doing to go watch that. Yeah. But besides that, most of the videos that are live, I think, don't need to be live. And so it'll just be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if it finds its own little niche, its own little corner of the internet, or if it blows up the way Facebook wants it to. I'm not yet sold that it will.
Well, it's interesting that you say that this was easy. There's so many complicated issues with Facebook this year, and Facebook Live was one of them too. I mean, we think about the acts of violence that were live streamed this year and made things, that was very complicated. It spread quickly. It was a lot of questioning, like, do we watch this? Is this, are these things happening all the time? And now Facebook is giving us the opportunity to see them when, in our tiny bubbles, we don't normally. So, I mean, what do you make of like the political issues that came with Facebook Live this year?
Well, the violent stuff, I believe it happened earlier in the year, and I think a lot of people have probably forgot that even happened.
It was July, I think, when
was it over summer?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's crazy given how much has happened outside of the world of Facebook in the last 6 months that you forget, right? That was a big deal. That this whole notion of like, well, how do you monitor live video? Like, there's a reason that on TV you typically see live video with a short, even if it's 3 or 5 second delay, because someone wants to be there to pull the plug, right? And if you have 10,000 people all going live at once, there's no way you're going to be able to stop someone from doing something spur of the moment that's violent or racist or aggressive or whatever. Obviously, Facebook, my understanding is Facebook and Twitter are working on, AI algorithms and things to try and detect this type of behavior so that it can be pulled down automatically. But I don't know. Unfortunately, I kind of believe that it's going to take another incident before people, really push for this to be to be fixed, because there are so many other things that Facebook is dealing with right now. I don't think it's top of mind. I shouldn't say I don't know where it ranks in terms of their priorities internally. I do not know. But at least from the outside, it no longer feels top of mind given everything else that's been going on. And so I hope this isn't true, but part of me thinks like we will be talking about this again because there will be an incident, and then that is what's going to push this to the forefront, and they're going to have to figure it out. But it's definitely a big deal. I don't think there's an easy solution right now. And I wish I had a better answer as to like how this is going to all play out.
Yeah, I mean, it was July that Philando Castile was shot by a police officer. His girlfriend live streamed it, and then it went down. It went down that night, and representatives from Facebook said that was a technical issue.
Right.
And back then I believed it, but given everything that's happened since then, I just wonder, you look back at it and you think, like, are they being upfront about what's the technical issue, what's an algorithm, and what's someone saying like, hey, we need to take that down.
Right,
and I'm
damage
not saying
control.
that they're purposely doing it. It's a huge company. So, what, someone might be saying something that is not true, but they didn't know that it wasn't true. So yeah, but it was maybe the beginning of this, like what power does Facebook have over this? Even though they say they don't have the power and they don't want to have the power, like from a journalistic perspective.
I don't have any hard evidence. My gut check is that it was not a technical issue. My gut check is that they were trying to figure out how to move forward, and they threw a digital black box over the video until they made a decision and ultimately decided, okay, this can stay up. I feel like we've seen them do that in the past with other things like photos, right? Like a photo will disappear for 24 hours and they'll be like, oh, it just technical issue. It went away, but now it's back. And we've also decided that it can stay up. You know what I mean? So I think this all comes back to a much, much bigger problem that I'm sure we're going to talk about a lot more when it comes to Facebook and their fake news thing, which is just like, what is Facebook's role, right? It wants to be an independent platform. And obviously it has guidelines, things that are and aren't allowed. But there's a very big gray area in all of this that typically news organizations, they have editorial folks in place to make those, right? Like, is the news value of this video worth the violent aspects of it, or the the troubling, gory aspects of it? Those are editorial decisions, and Facebook doesn't want to make editorial decisions. They want to leave everything up to a computer algorithm and wipe their hands clean and say, the algorithm will drive this. We don't have humans doing it. But unfortunately, it's not that easy when you're dealing with things of news value. So that's what we saw with fake news, and what we'll continue to see them battle probably in 2017 is like, is Facebook a media company? I believe that they are. They claim that they're not. And then when you are a media company, what responsibilities come with that? Deciding what should and should not be allowed on your platform is part of that. And so I don't know. I apologize. I feel like I'm kind of rambling here, but I just think this is going to be the biggest theme probably from Facebook next year is how do they deal with the fact that they're making decisions about what we see and what we don't see, and when will they take responsibility for it?
Yeah, that's absolutely. And that kind of leads into the next topic, which, you've kind of mentioned some of these things. We've seen overly aggressive bots that are removing, Pulitzer Prize winning photojournalism, endlessly discussed and insanely politicized proliferation of fake news. I mean, that just keeps coming up. Facebook's been on a constant defensive with all this stuff. Now, Facebook announced very recently that it's challenging fake news on the platform with partnerships that will call out those links within the news feed. Necessary change, Kurt? What do you think? Is it a good start? Can it be effective enough? What do you think?
I think it's a good start. I've already seen people complaining and saying, well, how can you trust ABC or the Associated Press to accurately, be the arbiters of truth here? As someone who's in the media, I think that the Associated Press does a good job. You know what I mean? I think that they're, for the most part, pretty neutral, and they have good reporters, and that they are a good example of someone who could read a news article, take their skills as journalists to go out and fact check it, and then come back and say, hey, we think that there are issues here or there are not. So I think it's a good, I don't know how efficient it's going to be, right? Like, there are, I would imagine, millions of stories shared on Facebook, or millions of posts every day, thousands of stories. I am sure that there will be people on both sides of the political spectrum that come in and flag things as fake just because they don't like them or agree with them. And is a 6-person team at ABC going to be able to fact check the entire internet every single day? No, they're not. So I don't know how this ultimately plays out, but I like the idea of saying, hey, we're actually going to look at these stories that people have flagged and do our best to determine their news accuracy. I just don't know how long-term this fix is going to be. I'm sure we'll find out how quickly they're inundated with things as they start to roll this out.
Yeah, and hope that they're able to meet the demand of that accurately and not find themselves in another predicament as a result. Now, right. there were times throughout the year, particularly towards the last, within the last half of the year, where Facebook's leaders just really kind of, I don't know, my own personal opinion, seemed tone deaf to the impact of the network, of the platform that it has, the influence that it has over its users. How imperative is it for the success of Facebook for this attitude to change, or does it really matter? Mike Elgin, who's been, who was previous host of this show, and it always stuck with me, had always said Facebook has a monopoly on people. So, I mean, that's an insane, insane way to put it, but it's true. Everybody is on Facebook. How important is it for Facebook's kind of higher ups, including Mark Zuckerberg, to kind of, change their attitude when it comes to this stuff?
Well, I think right now it's important to folks like us, because we're in the media world and we care. How important is it to users? I don't know. I mean, it's not as if Facebook is losing users. It's not as if their revenue is starting to disappear because people are pulling the plug and saying, we don't trust Facebook. So it matters to me. It sounds like it matters to you guys. I think it should matter to Mark, and I think it does. I think it really does. I don't think he likes this idea that people in the media are calling, Facebook out for this. But at the same time, what are the consequences of not moving super quickly? Right now, there haven't really been any. But here's the irony, right? Is you can't sit there on an earnings call every quarter and say, the reason Facebook's so incredible is that you can get a Super Bowl-sized audience for your content every single day, right? We have a Super Bowl-sized audience on Facebook every day. How incredible is that? Look at how many people we reach and impact. And then come out and say, oh, well, when it comes to fake stuff on Facebook, it's not our fault. It's not that big of a deal. We don't have much influence. You know what I mean? So you can't have both. And I think that people know that, but it's just a matter of how does Facebook, change their tune? It seems like they already are, because when the election first happened, Zuckerberg said, this idea that fake news impacted the election is crazy talk. You guys are ridiculous. Get out of here. 2 weeks later, he's like, here's our 10-point plan to fight fake news, right? So clearly things change quickly over there. But how much are they going to be willing to openly accept responsibility for? I do not know.
So they've been building up a lot of the features of Messenger. Now you can use the Snapchat chat-like filters in Messenger. I mean, do you think that Facebook is looking at the success of Snapchat and how it really is just more, there are stories in Snapchat, but it's really more of a one-on-one interaction. And do you think Facebook looks at that and says hey, it seems like it's a lot easier to build up Messenger, and if in a Messenger platform, no one's claiming that anyone is a journalist or is a newspaper or is the arbiter of truth or not. Do you think they're really sort of trying to push people to spend more time there as people share less personal things on their Facebook newsfeed?
Do you wonder if they want to drive news readers to Messenger or just general time spent to Messenger? Because I think those are probably two different strategies, right?
I guess, their bottom line is who's spending more time looking at ads, right? That's what it's essentially all about. So do you think that they're driving more people to Messenger just to keep the stickiness there instead of reading news?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Messenger has over 1 billion users. They've clearly put a lot of time and resources into building up that platform. When they split it out, I guess it was probably 2 years ago now, that was a huge deal, right? They were saying, hey, you have to go download this new app if you want to keep messaging your Facebook friends. We're not going to have it in the core app anymore, that feature. And people freaked out, and yet everyone went and did it. So clearly there's a demand for it. And I think that what they see for it depends on who you ask, right? There are a group of people who really, truly believe that messaging is the future of all communication. And it's kind of almost silly to say it out loud, because most of my communication now actually already happens through Messenger, right? But what I mean by that is they think you're going to get your news in Messenger. They think you're going to shop in Messenger, and not just Facebook Messenger, but WeChat is doing this, right? And Kik is doing this. And the messaging app is viewed by a lot of people as the most important service you have on your phone. So let's bring all these other things that you do and bring them into that experience so you don't ever have to leave. I think that's what Facebook is ultimately doing with Messenger. I think the Snapchat thing, the idea of building Snapchat features into Messenger to try and get people to spend more time there, it's totally legit. I think we've seen Facebook attempt to replicate Snapchat's app probably 2 or 3 times now without success. And so what they seem to have resorted to here is saying, well, we're never going to replicate all of Snapchat. So let's go ahead and take the best features and the coolest features of Snapchat and just put them in all the apps that everyone already used from Facebook. It sounds, again, obvious, but there was a time where they literally tried to replicate the entire experience instead of just saying, we're going to take stories and put it in Instagram. We're going to take filters and we're going to put it into Facebook Live and now Messenger. And we're going to take, Discover, and we already have that with instant articles and things in Facebook. Like, they are just ripping Snapchat apart and putting it into all of their different services. And it'll be really fascinating when Snapchat goes public. They're going to have to start sharing user numbers quarter after quarter, things like that. It'll be interesting to see if this has a real impact on them. I think that it could, because they're not, Snapchat is still a young and growing company. And here Facebook is really trying to dismantle them.